Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving right into what is literally an epic scientific detective story. We're going to track down the fundamental building blocks of the universe, and we'll be journeying all the way from ancient philosophy to the absolute mind-bending edges of quantum mechanics. It's a story of smashed paradigms, brilliant accidents, and really the relentless human drive to figure out what everything around us is actually made of. So picture a block of gold. If you cut it in half, it's still gold, right? But if you keep cutting it smaller and smaller, eventually you hit a wall. What happens when you try to cut the uncuttable? Well, ancient Greek philosophers around 400 BC actually believed you would reach a fundamental indestructible particle. They called it atomio, which literally translates to uncuttable or non-divisible. And honestly, for over 2,000 years, this was just accepted as the absolute truth. But as we know, science never settles. Section 1, Smashing the Uncuttable Atom. This is the fascinating chapter where the old, rigid rules of matter get completely thrown out the window. Okay, let's dive into this timeline. For over 2 millennia, from 400 BC all the way up to 1808, when British schoolteacher John Dalton formally proposed his solid atomic theory, we genuinely thought the atom was the absolute end of the line. But then, in the 1850s, scientists like Michael Faraday started messing around with electricity inside partially evacuated glass tubes. They were just trying to unlock the secrets of electricity, but they accidentally found the key to the atom instead. By shooting high voltage through these glass tubes, they generated these mysterious glowing streams they called cathode rays. But here's the kicker. These weren't just beams of light. Magnetic and electrical fields actually bent them. This proved that these rays were actually a stream of tiny, negatively charged particles. Yeah, the electron. The uncuttable atom had just been cut. It actually had moving parts. Which brings us to Section 2, Thomson's plum pudding model. So we found these negative electrons, but atoms themselves are inherently electrically neutral. That meant there had to be some positive charge in there to balance things out. The big mystery was, how on earth are these charges arranged inside the atom? In 1898, J.J. Thomson proposed a beautifully simple answer. He basically envisioned the atom as this sphere of uniformly distributed positive charge. And the negative electrons? They were just embedded into it to make it stable. It was exactly like plums in a pudding, or if you prefer, seeds scattered throughout a watermelon. It neatly and perfectly explained the atom's neutral charge. And for a while, Thomson's model was widely accepted. But then comes Section 3, Rutherford's gold foil shock. We're about to see the incredibly bold experiment that completely shattered that delicious watermelon model. Ernest Rutherford and his students designed a truly ingenious setup. They took an incredibly thin sheet of gold foil and directed a stream of high-energy, positively charged alpha particles right at it. Now, based on Thomson's plum pudding model, the atom's mass and positive charge were supposed to be spread out evenly, right? So Rutherford fully expected these heavy alpha particles to just punch right through that uniform pudding with almost zero deflection. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how shocking the actual results were. While most alpha particles did pass right through, a small fraction deflected, and incredibly about 1 in 20,000 bounced straight back. Rutherford essentially said it was like firing a massive artillery shell at a piece of tissue paper and having it bounce back and hit you. Just impossible under the old rules. This discovery completely rewrote our understanding of reality. The positive charge wasn't spread out at all. It was densely packed into an impossibly small central core that we now call the nucleus. To really grasp this scale, think about this analogy. If that dense nucleus is the size of a cricket ball sitting right in the center of a field, the outer edge of the atom would be 5 kilometers away. The atom, and therefore you, me, the device you're watching this on, is almost entirely empty space. Mind-blowing, isn't it? Section 4, Counting Protons and Neutrons. Now that the atom is busted wide open, let's quickly catalog the fundamental suspects we've discovered so far in our little mystery. So here we have the complete cast of characters that make up an atom. We have the tiny, negatively charged electron orbiting way out there in that vast, empty space. Deep inside that super dense nucleus, we have the positively charged proton. And finally, discovered much later by James Chadwick in 1932, we have the neutron. It has a mass very similar to the proton, but it carries absolutely zero electrical charge. Now, the crucial thing to remember is that the number of protons defines the chemical identity of the atom. Carbon is carbon because it has 6 protons. End of story. But what happens if you add or remove one of those neutral neutrons? Well, you get an isotope. The atom gets heavier or lighter, but because the protons and electrons stay exactly the same, its chemical behavior remains totally identical. Okay, so we have a tiny, dense nucleus, orbited by electrons in vast, empty space. It sounds like a perfect logical model, right? Well, Section 5, the solar system flaw. Turns out there is a massive physics-breaking complication that threatens to destroy Rutherford's beautiful new atomic model. See, Rutherford's atom is essentially a tiny solar system, but there's a huge problem if you try applying classical physics to this. According to Maxwell's electromagnetic theory, any charged particle that accelerates, and an electron orbiting in a circle is constantly accelerating, must emit electromagnetic radiation. If it's emitting radiation, it's losing energy. So the calculation showed that Rutherford's orbiting electrons should spiral inward and crash into the nucleus in 100 millionth of a second, meaning matter literally shouldn't exist. But, well, since you and I are sitting here and haven't instantly vaporized, classical physics must be failing us at the atomic level. We desperately needed a revolution. Section 6. Enter the quantum world. To save the atom, scientists had to completely rethink the fundamental nature of energy itself. Classical, 19th century physics assumed energy flowed smoothly, kind of like a continuous ramp. But in the year 1900, Max Planck proposed a radical new theory, quantum theory. He basically said, actually, scratch that. Energy isn't continuous at all. Instead, he suggested it is absorbed or emitted in discrete, fixed packets called quanta. And Planck didn't just guess this out of thin air. He figured it out by studying something called a black body. Now, this is a theoretical, ideal object that absorbs and emits radiation across all frequencies uniformly. By carefully analyzing the light and heat radiating off glowing hot objects, Planck realized the mathematical curves only made sense if the energy was being released in strictly portioned chunks. And this brilliantly illustrates the idea. To understand quantization, think of it exactly like standing on a staircase. You can stand on the first step, or the second step, or the third. You can jump from step to step, gaining or losing a specific, fixed amount of potential energy. But you physically cannot stand in the empty space between the steps. The energy levels in an atom act just like these steps. Now, this quantum idea successfully solved another massive scientific puzzle of the era. Back in 1887, H. Hertz observed the photoelectric effect. This is a crazy phenomenon where electrons are instantly ejected from certain metals when you shine a specific frequency of light on them. The problem, again, was classical wave theory. If light is just a continuous, smooth wave washing over the metal, it should take time for the wave's energy to slowly build up enough force to knock an electron loose. But experiments showed there was absolutely no time lag. So how does light knock an electron free without any time delay whatsoever? The answer absolutely revolutionized physics. Light isn't just a wave. It also acts as a stream of physical, particle-like packets of energy, which we now call photons. When a photon with enough quantum energy hits an electron, it instantly transfers all its energy in a single collision, almost like billiard balls crashing into each other on a table. Boom! The electron is instantly knocked free. So, we solve the mystery by realizing that light possesses a dual nature. It behaves as both a continuous wave and a discrete stream of particles. But that leaves us with an incredible, mind-bending cliffhanger. If light can act as both a wave and a particle, what does that mean for the seemingly solid, particle-like electrons orbiting the nucleus? Could they be acting like waves? We are going to dive into that bizarre and wonderful quantum mechanical model in our next explainer. Thanks so much for joining me on this detective story, and as always, keep wondering.